The stars had never looked so cold. Admiral Darian Voss stood at the viewport of the UNSS Ironclad, hands clasped behind his back, jaw set like poured concrete. Beneath him, the blue-green curve of Earth hung in the dark, but it was not the Earth he had left 18 months ago. That Earth had been patient, reasonable, diplomatic. That Earth was gone. Around him, the bridge crew moved in silence. Lieutenant Joe handled navigation with the rigid efficiency of someone who had stopped sleeping. Ensign Me ran sensor sweeps with hollow eyes. Corporal New York calibrated the weapons array with the mechanical repetition of a man who no longer asked why, only when. In the engine room, Chief Dye pushed reactor output beyond rated limits and answered no questions about it. Gunner High sat at the forward battery console with her finger never more than a breath from the trigger. In communications, Petty Officer Wa filtered every incoming Galactic Council transmission through a silence that felt deliberate and absolute. Nobody spoke unless they had to. They had all watched the footage. All 247 seconds of it. 18 months ago, the colony ship Evergreen had crossed into the Yelhuri Nebula, declared open transit corridor by the Galactic Council's own Treaty of Verith. Aboard were 4,211 humans. Engineers. Teachers. Children. A woman named Reza who had packed her grandmother's recipe book. A boy named Callum who had brought a telescope. The Yelhuri Defense Consortium had not honored the treaty. They had called it territorial correction. The Council had called it a regrettable misunderstanding. They had issued a statement. 3 paragraphs. No sanctions. No reparations. No apology that used the word sorry. Earth had read the statement. Earth had gone quiet. High Chancellor Zareth of the Galactic Council had not been sleeping well either. He sat now in the Grand Chamber of Conclave, surrounded by 47 species who considered themselves the architects of interstellar civilization, and he studied the transmission Earth had sent 4 days ago with the careful attention of someone reading a threat written in a language they had assumed they would never need to learn. The message had been brief. This is Admiral Darian Voss, Supreme Commander, United Nations Space Force. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from the Treaty of Verith, the Accord of Shared Skies, and all subsidiary agreements therein. We are transmitting our new doctrine. Read it carefully. We will not repeat ourselves. Attached had been a single document. 31 pages. No diplomatic softening. No conditional clauses. No language about pursuing peaceful resolution. Zareth read it for the 4th time now, and his secondary hearts beat in a rhythm that his personal physician would have called alarming. The document did not declare war. It did something the Council had no legal framework for. It declared that humanity was done pretending. Darian had written most of it himself, in the 3 weeks after the footage leaked, after every human on Earth had seen what the Yelhuri ships had done to the Evergreen before she broke apart. He had written it in the hours when he could not eat. When Joe brought him coffee, he drank it without tasting it. When Me reported new intelligence on Yelhuri fleet positions, he read it and said nothing and marked it. He had served 31 years in uniform. He had sat in council chambers and spoken words like restraint and measured response and diplomatic channel. He had believed in them. He believed in them the way you believe in something right up until the moment you watch 4,000 people die because someone else stopped believing first and no one stopped them. Fleet disposition, he said. 17 vessels in formation, Joe answered without looking up. High confirms weapons are hot. Dye has reactors at 114%. She says she can hold it. Tell her I said good. Admiral. It was at communications. He spoke rarely. When he did, people listened. We're receiving a priority transmission from Conclave. High Chancellor Zareth is requesting direct dialogue. Darian was quiet for a moment. Put him through. Zareth's image resolved on the view screen, tall, silver carapaced, his 4 eyes carrying the weight of someone who had governed for 60 years and was now facing something his governance had never prepared him for. "Admiral Voss," he said. "I am glad you accepted contact." "High Chancellor." Darian's voice was level. Not warm. Level. "Say what you came to say." Zareth spread his upper hands in the council gesture of openness. "Earth's withdrawal from our foundational treaties is a matter of grave concern to the entire galactic community. We understand grief. We understand anger. What happened to the Evergreen was 4,211 people," Darian said. Zareth paused. 4,211 people, Darian said again, and something in his voice made Gunnar High's finger move 1 millimeter closer to her console. "I want you to say that number back to me, High Chancellor. I want to hear you say it." The silence on the channel lasted 4 full seconds. "Admiral," Zareth said carefully, "the Council has opened formal inquiry proceedings against the Yelhuri Consortium. This process?" "Your process," Darian said, "takes an average of 11 years. Your last formal inquiry, against the Dromoth hegemony for the Sarai Station incident, concluded with a letter of formal censure and a recommendation for voluntary trade review." He paused. 43 people died at Sarai Station. We read that outcome and said nothing. We told ourselves that was the cost of civilization. His jaw tightened. We were wrong. Zareth leaned forward. "Admiral, I am asking you, as one leader to another, do not do this. Humanity is young. You have not seen what unrestrained conflict does to species, to systems, to centuries of." "We have seen what restraint does," Darian said. "We have a word for it." He looked directly into the camera. Not at Zareth's image. Through it. "We have 31 pages of new doctrine, High Chancellor. Page 1, paragraph 1. Would you like me to read it to you?" Zareth said nothing. Darian read it anyway. "The United Nations Space Force no longer recognizes a distinction between a civilized response and an effective one. We will pursue the latter. Any fleet, installation, or governing body that conducts, orders, permits, or obscures the killing of human civilians will be treated as a combatant. We will not wait for inquiry. We will not wait for censure. We will not wait." He lowered the document. "The Yelhuri Defense Consortium has 6 hours to transmit the full command roster of the engagement at the Yelhuri Nebula. Every name. Every rank. Every order given. And if they do not?" Zareth asked. His voice had gone very still. Darian looked at Corporal New York, who had already set the targeting solution. At Gunnar High, who was ready. At Ensign Me, who had already run the numbers. At Chief Dai, who had already decided she would hold the reactors at 114% for as long as it took. At Lieutenant Joe, who was already plotting the intercept course. At Petty Officer Wa, who had already stopped filtering. He looked back at the High Chancellor. "Then the Yelhuri Defense Consortium will learn what humanity does when it stops pretending to be something it isn't." He cut the channel. In the Grand Chamber of Conclave, 47 species sat in silence for a very long time. High Chancellor Zareth stared at the blank screen. He had governed for 60 years. He had negotiated treaties with species that breathed methane, species that communicated in color, species that measured time in geological epochs. He had seen wars. He had ended wars. He had never, in 60 years, felt something he could only call afraid. Not of violence. Species warred. That was calculable. He was afraid because he had just watched a human look him in the eye and not blink. He was afraid because he understood, suddenly and completely, that humanity had not declared war. Humanity had done something worse. Humanity had decided that the rules of civilization applied to civilized behavior, and that they had just watched the other side of the negotiating table prove, for the last time, that it did not qualify. He turned to his aide. His voice, when it came, was quiet. Contact the Yelhuri Consortium. Yes, Chancellor. What message? Zareth thought about 4,211 people. About a boy with a telescope. About 31 pages that began with the words "We will not wait." Tell them, he said slowly, that they have 5 hours and 53 minutes to make a decision. He paused. And tell them I strongly suggest they make the right one. On the bridge of the UNSS Ironclad, Admiral Darian Voss stood at the viewport again. Below him, Earth turned. Patient. Quiet. No longer waiting.